The notification arrived while I was rinsing coffee grounds out of the French press, a tiny gray banner that shouldn't have known my name. Unknown AirTag moving with you. The phrase was clinical, helpful, like a stranger pointing out spinach in my teeth. I dried my hands and clicked it open. A map appeared with a blue dot, me gliding along yesterday's route from the office to our apartment. Another dot pulsed nearby like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I told myself it was nothing. Someone's luggage on the bus. A neighbor's key ring. But the message lingered in my phone like a cough that doesn't quit. I slipped the device into my pocket and watched steam halo the kitchen window. Elena padded in wearing my t-shirt, hair braided into a line that made promises I usually believed. She kissed my shoulder, then aimed for the fridge as if the milk had been texting her all night. "Running late?" I asked, which was my way of asking for more time with the version of us that still felt uncomplicated. "Big pitch," she said, already halfway in the carton's mouth with a straw. "Julian wants us at the hotel by 10. The client refuses to meet in the office, says the lighting there makes his face look tired." She rolled her eyes. I didn't know fluorescent bulbs could age investors. I made a sound that was almost a laugh. "Which hotel?" "Monarch," she said. "It's near the river. Don't wait up for lunch. I'll grab something between sessions." She looked at my mug, at my hands, at the slice of morning we were splitting. "You good?" "Always," I said, which is what you answer when you don't want the room to ask more questions. After she left, I opened the AirTag alert again and scrolled through the instructions about unknown devices traveling with you. It said I could make the tag play a sound. I pressed the button. The kitchen went on breathing. Nothing beeped. The app suggested the tone might be disabled if the tag's owner was nearby. The words were polite. The implication was. I tested the idea like a sore tooth and dressed faster than a reason. On the sidewalk, the city exhaled Friday, trucks shouldering into loading zones, a dog dragging a person toward a rumor of bacon, a cyclist too awake for the rest of us. I headed toward the Monarch because pretending there was no coincidence would have required a better actor than I am. The lobby smelled like fig and expensive patience. A man in a navy blazer arranged newspapers with the concentration of a surgeon. I took a seat where I could see the elevators without fully admitting it. 10 minutes later, one opened and Elena stepped out with the kind of practiced grace that photographs love. Her hair was up. She never wore it that way for fluorescent lighting. She moved across the lobby like a decision already made. When her phone vibrated, she checked it without breaking stride. The other elevators breathed and blinked. A door on the far wall opened. Julian strode out with a smile I didn't care for and a suit that understood compliments. He said her name like it belonged in his mouth. He touched her elbow briefly, proprietorially, a pilot guiding a plane to a gate. They disappeared into a hallway with a sign that said conference level. I reminded myself that elbows are not invitations, they are joints. The unknown dot pulsed again in my pocket. I should have left. I should have gone to work and arranged my own stack of newspapers into manageable illusions. Instead, I followed the way a moth follows a lamp, not intelligently but faithfully. On the conference floor, the carpet softened the honesty of footsteps. A staffer with the patient kindness of someone who has a meeting about a meeting gestured toward a cluster of rooms named after birds. The door to Wren was ajar. In the slice of view, I saw Elena at a long table with laptops and water bottles and bowls of candy marketed as Focus. Julian sat beside her, close enough to share a secret without moving his lips. The room's glass wall threw my reflection back at me. A tall man inventing a reason to be here. I adjusted my tie I wasn't wearing and walked on. 7 stops. That's what I gave myself. 7 small pauses between the stairwell and whatever door I was going to knock on. At the first stop, by the window, I told myself Elena was allowed to have friends. At the second, by a potted plant that had seen more proposals than a ring, I acknowledged that my attention was not an indictment. At the third, by a framed photo of a river in winter, I remembered that she liked to count trains as they crossed the bridge at night. At the fourth, by a water station, I swallowed, and the paper cup collapsed like a tired argument. At the fifth, beneath a print of a bird mid-flight, I considered that people rarely fall mid-flight. They fall when they've landed somewhere they shouldn't have. At the sixth, by a door marked storage, I heard laughter, hers, through the wall, followed by the low music of Julian's agreement. At the seventh stop, outside Finch, the alert vibrated again. I tapped. The map reported the unknown AirTag last seen near you. I imagined it tucked into a laptop sleeve, nested with mints in a handbag, taped beneath a table like a spy novel that doesn't know it's ridiculous. I pressed the button to play the sound. A faint chirp answered from somewhere behind the door. It's the ordinary details that make the floor tilt. The angle of a smile, the position of a chair, a sound that wasn't meant for you. I knocked once lightly, then pushed the door open as if I had every right to be the kind of man who opens doors without being invited. A catering cart stood inside with its shrouded trays. The room was empty except for a handbag on a chair and an envelope embossed with the hotel's crest. The chirp sounded again, bird-like in a room named after birds. I followed it to the handbag and found the AirTag in a side pocket, white and oblivious. For a second I simply held it as if quiet could be returned like a wrong size. The envelope bore our last name. Inside, a folded note in Alina's handwriting said, Room 608. Lunch break, below that please. There are sentences that open a window and sentences that take away the floor. This did both. I pocketed the tag because pettiness is a kind of armor and left the way a thief leaves. Calm, polite, unhurried, already ashamed of the dumbness of it all. Room 608 sat behind a hallway that took itself very seriously. I could feel my heart trying to make executive decisions without me. When the door opened, Alina looked less surprised than I had expected and more tired than I had let myself see. Hi, she said, not glancing down to make sure she was presentable, which told me more than I wanted to learn. You always were good with puzzles. I got help from a very small, very loud circle of plastic, I said, showing her the tag. Souvenir. It isn't mine, she said. Julian put it in my bag last month. He said it was for security in unfamiliar cities. I told him to stop. He didn't. She took the tag from me and set it on the desk like a bug she didn't want to kill or forgive. That's not why you're here. No, I said, but it's why I'm not somewhere else. She closed the door. For a moment we listened to the mechanical breath of the building. She stood with her back against the wood as if it were the only steady thing available. You and Julian, I said, because I had rehearsed so many better sentences and none of them could get past that one. For 2 months, she said. The number landed with the weight of something that had been waiting to be counted. That's 8 Fridays, I said, and my voice tried to make a joke and failed. She rubbed her thumb against her palm, a nervous habit I had once loved because it meant she was thinking. I hate what I've done, she said. I hate that I liked being looked at like a decision instead of a default. I hate that I'm telling you this in a room that smells like other people's perfume. What do you want? I asked. The words came out flat with effort. I want you to decide if you can start over with me, she said. But not with denial, our first ingredient. I'll quit. I'll tell HR. I'll write an email that uses all the boring words like boundaries and inappropriate and policy. I'll tell the truth. You deserve a wife who doesn't need a hotel room to remember what promise means. The part of me that liked speeches stood up. The part of me that longed for a world without the possibility of betrayal sat down. My self-respect and my history with her stared at each other like cousins who don't attend the same reunions. "Were you going to meet him here today?" I said. She nodded, then shook her head, then nodded again, which is the shape honesty makes when it's late. "I booked it to prove to myself I wouldn't go through with it. That's cowardly. I wanted a test with a door I could lock. And then you walked in, which is either God or coincidence finally getting a sense of humor." "I'm not interested in being your conscience," I said. "I'm asking you to be my husband," she said, and her mouth did this brave, trembling thing that made me mourn and hope in the same breath. "If the answer is no, I'll pack my things and give you every key that ever had our name on it. If the answer is maybe, I'll do the work until it becomes yes or no." We sat on the unused bed like two people auditioning for a life. I told her about the AirTag notification and how it made me feel like a package someone wanted to claim. I told her about all the mornings that had felt like postcards and all the nights that had felt like receipts. She told me about the airport layover when she and Julian had laughed at the same stupid headline, about the day he noticed she'd changed her screensaver to a photo from the lake, about the way his attention had felt like a rescue boat arriving while she pretended she was drowning. We drew a map of the missteps and left space for the parts we still didn't understand. When noon came and went without a knock, Elena texted HR. I watched her type the entire message, every dull, brave syllable, and send it. A minute later her phone buzzed. An acknowledgement, a time for a meeting, the slow machinery of accountability beginning to turn. She blocked Julian's number while I read the hotel's evacuation plan because I didn't know where to look. "I don't forgive you because you blocked him," I said. "I forgive you, if I ever do, because you become someone different on normal Tuesdays." "I like Tuesdays," she said. "They have low expectations." We checked out of a room that had never been used for its most obvious purpose and walked to the river. The city continued without us, loud and competent. Elena reached for my hand as if it were a cup of water. I let her have it for a block, then two, then as long as we were honest. That night we made a ceremony of deleting things. The hotel's Wi-Fi from her phone, a draft email I'd never send to the woman from my gym who always said my name like it was a password. We were fully clothed and careful, and somehow the carefulness felt more intimate than any rush ever had. When we went to bed, her foot found my calf the way it used to. It was not a truce. It was a choice made in a room that had only our names on the door. The AirTag sat on the kitchen counter until morning. Then Elena took it to HR, placed it on the desk, and said all the boring, brave words again. I noticed her hand didn't shake. Tuesdays, it turns out, can be beautiful without trying to be anything else.